I'm hitting record. Okay. So let me just walk through that again.
I'm sorry because
Xavier's
you
going,
say very good things. Yeah.
okay. So these are the three questions, the logic of the document, of the white paper document. Because you've got a great narrative in your document, but it's a narrative that explains the story of the European Evangelical Alliance. It doesn't connect to the logic. It's a fast read at a third grade level. So the first thing is you would say, what is the need? And you state the problem. And the need, one way to state it, is Christianity has been declining in Europe for a number of centuries. And the Evangelical Alliance, the evangelicals are the ones that are most clear about Christianity and could be the most hopeful to turn that around in Europe. Third is there is a group, the Evangelical Alliance, European Evangelical Alliance, that is committed to do that, but they need more resources to do that. And they will do that by unifying the different countries' evangelical movements, helping each country's evangelical movement to be stronger, and to create ways for them to do joint projects together. And those are the three things that are in the WEA's mission statement or means. So what you're saying is the need is declining Christianity, marginalized evangelicals, yet evangelicals are the greatest hope. And the need is there's an organization already in place that can help overcome this, but they need resources to do that.
Okay.
And then you say, what is God telling you to do about it? Well, what you would like to do is to help a greater regional presence, that there's more ways that the European Evangelical Alliance can communicate to its national members and its associate members. So more of a conversation, more regional strength, then also more national strength of current evangelical alliances. So money would help the Russian Evangelical Alliance have a greater influence. And then third, to open up new evangelical alliances in places like Belarus and Armenia and other places, Georgia and other places, so that the evangelicals in those areas are represented. And so what you're doing is saying, we need money, and this is where you have to come up with a strategy for a better communication strategy, a better mentoring and equipping strategy of current alliances, and also to fund people like you as an ambassador going to new areas, recruiting and building teams for new alliances. And so you'd kind of write that up in whatever strategy makes sense. And then how would you know you've done it? Okay, this is where it gets into what the conversation with Steve, and this is sometimes difficult. One is that there would be more communication process, more communication at the regional level, and more involvement of people in those communication processes, which might involve the online training, online meetings, face-to-face meetings. There's just more activity of conversation at the regional level. A second way is that using the measurements that measure what is a healthy alliance, and Godfrey has those, you would be able to see discernible differences in the funding of an alliance, the ability of the alliance to engage the whole nation, that's one of the measurements, the ability of the alliance to have a sustainable office with a sustainable, and the ability of the alliance to be seen through more media quoting and more influence in government. And last, to see evidence that local churches, as a result of the alliance, are doing more gospel activities and gospel proclamation. And you've got to try to define that in reasonable terms.
Okay.
And another measurement would be is that new alliances would be started where they actually are viable. They have an office, they have leaders, they have a team, they're beginning to get funding in Belarus, Armenia, Georgia, and other places that you are asking to build new alliances. And those are measurables.
Okay, very good.
And
Thank
then
you.
after all of that, you can go into some more detail. And this is where you don't lose the paragraphs you've already met. After that, and if you notice, this is kind of a little bit restated. The idea, this is why this is a little bit different up here. These are the main three questions. What is God telling you to do about it? What are you called to do? If you were writing a proposal for a very specific project, the opening of an alliance in Armenia, let's say, then you would come down here. The idea is specifically that project. And what are you planning to do specifically in Armenia, and how much will that cost? So what's happening up here is, what is God telling you to do about it? Often is the overall strategy, because you've got a lot of strategies, and how you would measure that for the particular funding. And let's pick up just any project you're thinking about, whether one of the starts or something like that. And that is the idea. This is where the budget comes into place. And what has been your track record? This is where what you actually already written goes into place, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So
But like,
go ahead.
yeah, my question is like, my task is just like to go to all these areas and kind of fund my kind of office. This is like, I cannot say only for like, I have to have maybe 3 different or 4 different budgets for Georgia, for Armenia, for Belarus, or like how it's in, or like put inside of my office, like, travel expenses, meeting with the national leaders, developing networks, regional networks in Russia or whatever. How better to do it?
So what happens then is, what God is telling you to do about it is, you're talking about the overall strategy of increasing communication, because you're also looking at raising money for the European Evangelical Alliance, to overall increase communication and participation. That's for the whole thing. That's big. To help each current national alliances to grow stronger. And this is where I pull in the principles of what it makes a healthy alliance, the simple ones that Godfrey has. Thomas has access to them. I can get access to them, send them to you if you'd like. And then third, to open up new ones, okay? So that strategy is up here at the top. When you get down to the idea, you may actually have 20 idea sections. Now, don't write them for us, but for just get started. One of the ideas is starting one in say, Armenia. And that's where you would actually come up with a plan of how you would do that. What is it going to cost? And how would you know if you've done it there, if that makes sense? So then what that does, but if you write one up for Armenia, you could probably adjust it for Belarus and for Georgia, just change the money, change a little bit of the travel cost, depending on the flights. But also you would probably, maybe what you'd want to do for this white paper for Rob's review is focus more on building up a national alliance, focus on Russia, okay? What would it cost to build up a national alliance in Russia? But that plan could also become later a plan that Thomas could use for building up Switzerland or someplace else, because it's got a plan, the format is the same.
Okay.
Or you could say, develop a communication plan for the whole region. And what money would be needed for that to help to keep more communication, both at the events, but also through internet, and to get increased ownership. So more and more Evangelical Alliance leaders are showing up at these meetings. One of the things that Thomas is concerned about is, Hope for Europe. At one point, he wasn't sure it was going to happen because there's so few people signed up. And one of the ways to make it happen better is to have monthly phone calls or Zoom calls eventually. That's going to take some money. What other communication? How do you get more communication at a regional level to get more ownership? And that could be internet, but also face-to-face. So your strategies could be either starting new countries, building up existing countries, or regional communication ownership involvement.
Okay.
And I would just pick one of those, and your idea, which is the project, under the heading of these 3 up here, would be something you could try out, and then I could look at it, then Rob could look at it and take it to the next level. And maybe the priority, I don't know, is the priority for you to maybe build up Russia, or is it a priority for you to personally start these new alliances?
Well, it kind of both. Like we do have some general secretary of Russia, like who supposed to do so, and he's working on this. And I'm kind of friend of his, and like we can do it together. And but it just like my new how to say approach for Thomas, like just focus on this three new countries uh, to start new evangelical alliances there.
So I would suggest, okay, so if you do it with your friend who's the general, the secretary for Russia, you have a friend to work with, and you engage them because you eventually want to build a team to help you with fundraising. But if you feel the urgency to raise money around starting these three new alliances, I would focus on that. So one is more the urgency of what you're called to do. This earlier one would be the urgency of creating a team with your friend who heads up the alliance in Russia. Both have advantages.
Well, we do have some urgency to raise funds for like to start these three alliances, and like to develop Russian Evangelical Alliance is kind of I'm gonna located in this country, and I can be able to full time in working in connection with the local Evangelical Alliance.
So what I would suggest is maybe when you get to this idea saying, what is your plan for accomplishing it? This project you're focusing on is specifically to build up, focus on one country or focus on three. What are you hoping to do? What is it going to cost? How would you measure?
Okay.
So think about it as these three questions, the questions up here are overall strategy for your work. The idea is the specific strategy for one part of your work that you can budget and ask money for, because you typically ask money for projects. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So this would be the format, and I can resend this paper to you. Do you have it, or do you want me to resend it?
Yeah, would you send me again, please?
I will. And that gives you, so all that would do, so then getting back to your document, so what you've done here is you've written up well. It's just getting it into the logical format that allows a reader to get it quickly. And so what you've done here is you've done the track record of the European Evangelical Alliance. And that's great. That actually, the need is here. Okay, so I understand what you're saying, but the bottom line of the need is more of what's happening in the culture. Is the European Evangelical Alliance doesn't exist for itself. It exists to do God's work in a particular region. And so that's why you're saying there's been a decline in Christian influence. Evangelicals are in the best place to do that, and this organization is the best place to make that happen. That's more the need. Rather than saying inside of the European Evangelical Alliance, we need more values or we need more money. Yes, that comes, but there's a bigger reason why that's needed. If that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, it's true.
And so, and here, if you notice, you've gotten into a strategy early on in the document. So this is where it confuses a donor reader because it wants need, purpose and strategy, and then outcomes in a logical format, and then specifically the project. But if you start mixing them all together in a narrative, they have a little bit of a hard time following it in a fast read. Later in conversation, you can mix it up.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
And you've done a pretty good job here of saying what you're trying to do is work on these 7 mountains. And I think that is great because the part of the vision or the purpose is to see the evangelicals influence these 7 areas greater so that the gospel is shared and demonstrated. Is proclaimed and demonstrated.
Yep.
in here, you're describing some of the strategies, which is good, but it's mixed up in terms of strategy, need, purpose, strategy, and outcomes. We're trying to separate it out so it's clear and logical. So it's in here. It's just a matter of kind of taking the pieces and putting them in the right buckets.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. So does that give enough for next steps? And I'll send you this if that's helpful.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
So Steve and Xavier, what do you think? Anything you would add to this? And you can certainly contradict me. Someone unmute. Here we go. So anything you would add?
I was still on the listening side. I think as we're commenting, I was more on saying what is helpful to me. So listening more on that way. So I may not have a comment this time for Vitality. Just good to learn from what he's doing.
Pretty exciting mission, isn't it?
Sure.
Very exciting.
So I think.
So Steve, do you have any advice or thoughts?
No, like Xavier, I'm also taking the critique that has been given and just mind mapping really my my program as to how best I can get things done within that the alignment that you want for me.
Well, thank you. Again, he says, we're all doing exciting things. Hopefully it's encouraging just to see how God has led 3 different leaders in 3 different parts of the world to do just amazing things in different ways. And that's God and the Holy Spirit. So Xavier, now it's your turn. Let's see. Let me get that document up. Hold on. Make sure I have it on. Okay, so here's Xavier's. Here we go. So Xavier's in Mozambique, as y'all know. Okay, so the name of the project, it's Portuguese. So I appreciate the way you help translate that for us in terms of making sure it's readable by those of us that have English. So let's see. So what you've done here is you've done a good job of just stating the name of the organization. Again, that format that we want. You've given the location and you've given some context. You've given the mission statement and the summary of work involvement, which is what Rob wanted at the beginning. So then the purpose, the thing I did not see is, I felt like you did talk about the need, and that was up here.
Yes.
And that was helpful because that sets the need of the context of the need. What I did not see is a specific, what is God calling me to do? What is the need? Because a lot of your need is connected to this right here. And it's about the need for, so what you did here is you created the context for what's happening in the need of the context of the country, but it needs a section that says, what am I called to do? That first question that goes before the purpose. And here's where you say, go ahead.
Well, it's what I have just there is to empower Christians to flesh out their spirituality and to promote entrepreneurial solutions for poverty and lunch. So it's yeah, just above the purpose is where I indicate what I've been called to do. Where it says our work involves.
But if you notice, that's a summary, because what you did above this line here is all the summary that Rob asked to do at the front of the document. You got the name of the project. You've got the location, okay, which you've done a little more detail on the context of the problem. You've got your mission statement and a summary. So the next
Okay.
section that goes right here, a new section that says, what am I called to do? What need am I addressed? So just think of it as need. That's probably the best way. What is the need? Okay, what is the specific need I am called to address? That would be okay. And so then you would say, in our country, given all the problems I mentioned up above, one of the most specific areas that I feel like is a great need is the area of people engaging in understanding that God has given them gifts to work and building entrepreneurial businesses to help with poverty through churches. And so you would just
Sure.
basically state, you know, a great need, don't go into a lot of language, but a great need is to help local churches help business people to start businesses that address poverty and influence our nation, something like that.
Okay.
And this is a need because most churches don't understand a theology of work. They don't understand why God has called people to work. They don't equip people to understand their calling and to address their calling as business people. Secondly, a great need is we don't have a lot of entrepreneurship training that's contextualized to our country to the scale that we can do that helps our people to engage capital at the levels we need in our country. Third is our young people need mentors to help them to see business as a viable calling. Fourth, we need to be able to connect businesses better to the needs of churches and the needs of nonprofits that are addressing the needs of poverty. And fifth, we need people in poverty to understand a new identity and a new image that they can be business people. And how do the skills to do that, and where do they start? And how do we build a community to help them to become solutions to their own poverty through church-based entrepreneur training? So notice you've talked about the need. And then you would say, okay, so God is calling us then to address that need by mobilizing the church to catalyze social transformation through everyday work and launching mission entrepreneurs. So you stated the need first. The church isn't doing it. Business people don't see their value. The church isn't helping them see their value. People in poverty don't have a way to see themselves as business people. People in the church and in poverty and the workplace don't have specific training on how to increase their business skills or to become entrepreneurs. And we also need to have a community of encouragement and a community to help us raise capital to do that. Those are all needs. Now when you get to the purpose, you're saying, that's what I'm going to do, address that need. That makes sense. And then the idea, and so then specifically what you're going to do inside of that bigger idea of helping the churches be more entrepreneurial and training a theology of work is you're going to create a seed accelerator incubator program. And it's a way to address all the needs you stated up in the needs section, and it's consistent with the purpose. It's a specific project. Which is well written. I think it's clear. And you've got the details here. And you've got the program overview that's clear. You've got more, and this is probably more detailed than it's needed in a white paper. Let's leave it in until Rob tells you to take it out, okay? And then, because he probably will. And so here's your expenses. And notice you put together your expenses. You put it together in the quarters. This is a good budget. It's got a lot of detail to it, which I think is helpful for a funder to see. And then at the end, you have the story that describes kind of the background of where your track record is. And that's your track record. And notice it goes at the end because the logic of need, purpose, and strategy and measurement and budget goes before it. Then after that, they go, I like this idea. This makes sense to me. okay, let me learn more about the person that would lead it. And that's why they put the track record, our story, at the end of it. That's by that time the reader is saying, I get the context, need, vision, purpose, strategy, budget. Now I'd like to learn more about this person. And hopefully that opens up a conversation.
Sure.
But you've done a good job of organizing these sections. The only thing that he's going to say is this is a little bit too much detail, but I like it, so let's let him do that. My main thought for you at this point is to really add this section here.
The need, yeah.
What is the specific need I'm called to address? Which is one of his questions. That helps other people engage what you're doing. Specifically around the need for entrepreneurship development through the local church in Mozambique. Because that's the specific need you're addressing.
Okay.
The other thing is, the only other thing is when you get down to here, the other section to work on is the exact same thing that everybody else is getting to work on. You need to do an outcomes. Okay. Okay, what will be different as a result of this project? And that needs the same thing that Steve and Vitaly are doing. You need to put that in as much concrete terms as possible. How many people would have gone through? What would be the change in their lives? How would we see changes in their economic status? What would be different happening in the churches? What would be different happening in our country? And actually, this section here, to be honest with you, given Rob's format, should not be here. It actually should go up to, I know this is a little bit out of it, but it goes up a little bit higher.
Somewhere in the purpose.
It actually comes up here. What he's saying is you state the outcome earlier. Well, actually, the idea, you know what?
Something included on the purpose where I say we will know we have done our work when we see an increased number of entrepreneurs and things like. Yeah, just there. I probably have just to enrich that.
That's good, but it has to be more detailed.
Okay.
So how would you know that they're fleshing out their spirituality? What new companies would be started? So what you could do is, let's say you put it here. Let's say you put that here. You would say, number of people that go through the program. Let's see, they will know they've done the work, Christian or Saints. Number of people who are able to express concretely how they are fleshing out their spirituality 6 months and 1 year after the program. Program participants who have advanced in their workplaces to higher paying jobs. Okay. This I'm just giving you ideas.
Okay.
Number of churches who have created CW teaching and mentoring programs. Number of new businesses started. Estimate of financial impact, financial gain by program participants. I see that increased salaries. Something like that.
Okay.
Now, these may not be the right ones, but what it communicates to a donor is you're thinking very specifically about what it should look like if this is done, and you're willing to do the extra work to measure it. And by measuring it, you're doing the extra work to report back to them what's happened, what outcomes their money gave, whether it accomplished your goals or not.
Okay.
Something like that.
Wow. Sure.
That makes sense? So it's saying the same thing that you said up here. It's just nothing more than that, but it's giving
Yeah.
you details. And it communicates trust to the donor. You're thinking it through very specifically.
Okay.
So that's the next steps would be is to add this section here, add this
Needs.
here, and I'll send you this document. I'll keep it and just play with it. These may not be the best measurements at all. And then
Okay.
you could send it back to me, and let's get it ready by November 1st for Rob Martin to take a look at it. He'll take it to the next level.
Okay. Continue looking on it.
Yeah. So Steve and Vitaly, do you have any thoughts for Xavier?
Just a compliment. I'm impressed with the budgets, the work program he has outlined, and I'm impressed with the budget structure. A little bit jealous that I didn't have something as full as that in mind, but I'm impressed that he has been able to really cover, you know, income, expenses, and so forth. A question I have, not having done this before, how do I account in good governance to the donor about the management of funds? Let us say I got my 50,000 US, which is equivalent to 6.5 million Jamaican, and I'm going to spend that over a year. Should I prepare with my limited financial intelligence, not as an accountant, but just, you know, as a, what do you call it now, head of household, earning and spending, should I give like a quarterly statement of all transaction down to the last penny? Help me to stay on track, to be truthful, and to be trustworthy to my benefactors. What's the best way to encourage me to look trustworthy?
It's a great question. So most donors don't want to have that level of detail. But
Right.
what they do want to know is that you have a board, a governance board that's locally based that you're accountable to, that is
Yes.
checking that level of detail.
Okay.
They have to see the detail, but they need to know that you have a governing board, a team that's helping to check. You don't have to have the detail that Xavier has in his budget. He's good. There's nothing wrong with that. It's excellent. And by the way, you have a copy of his proposal. If
Right.
you copy and take his format and put it in yours, I'm sure he would be okay with that. You know,
Okay.
how we learn from each other. But you do have a copy of it. We don't use
Yes.
the same numbers because it's a different project.
Right.
But they really are going to ask, and this is at the second level, they will ask, tell us about your governing board and how are they checking you in terms of expenses and budget. But they don't want to see all that.
Okay.
They want to see, did you reach your outcomes? And if you didn't, what happened? And what did you learn from that? So that when you ask for more money, you will adjust it. So the outcomes, they want to be measured. And you know, again, think about it. They're from a distance. It's like
Right.
they're the equity partners. They
Right.
want to know this. They don't want to know each step of your budget. Accountable. They want to know what you're going to spend the money on, but they don't. They want your governing board to check that.
So that board become my personal checks and balance in terms of accountability for the funds. One more question. Should I take a stipend from the donated fund for
Absolutely.
my administrative, what should I say, work that I put in, or should it be totally voluntary where I don't touch it, or should I use my board to guide what the amount is that I should probably take for expenses?
Well, I think, the Bible says the worker is worthy of the pay, okay? And so, but I do think you need to have a board that helps you with that so that
Okay.
there's accountability, but I think you should take those stipends.
Good, thanks.
I think that would be true for anybody.
Right.
So even when Vitaly is raising money for let's say for his work with the building of the new alliances, part of that money is his travel. Part of that money is to help facilitate events for those alliances. Part of that money is his own salary.
Right. Yes.
It's an expense.
Okay.
And so that way it's like he's raising support, but he's not. He's raising money for his work in a specific project. He may be raising support otherwise, but it's both and.
All right. Reasonable.
Because some people like to give support because they trust the individual. Some people like to give to a stipend because they like the project. Most people's salaries are a combination of both. People that support you because they like you, and people that give you money for your salary because they like the project. It's very normal for there to be two motivations.
Okay. So these are concrete things I believe that we should nonetheless do before we actually put together the foundation, so that the checks and balances are in place.
So if you notice in Rob's videos that were in the class, and you can go back and look at them, I can show them to you. He did talk about a governing board, and he did talk about how that would be asked. Now, you may not have it in place yet, and that's okay, but you need to have somewhere in your proposal, the next stage, how you would build a governing board so that that $50,000 that you're asking for would be accountable. It doesn't go in the white paper. That's step one.
All right.
When you write your proposal, they will ask in proposals, tell us about your governing board.
Okay.
And you could say, I'm in the process of doing it, and here's what I'm going to do. Here's some people. But it doesn't belong in the white paper, but it would come in the proposal.
Right. Thank you.
Any other comments on Xavier's project?
No, that was all that I had.
Well, I don't have any comments. I think everything is just fine. We're all learning from it.
Well, we learn from each other. And so
Yeah.
that's the point of this time today. So I'm excited by these projects, and I'm excited by y'all put in a lot of work to get these white papers to this point. But so the white papers, once they're kind of designed, when you're writing grant requests and you just copy and paste, it's amazing how once you have this in place, how much easier it is to do websites, letters of inquiries to major donors, to foundations, be consistent in how you write your donors, your supporters. It's just amazing how this tool, it takes a lot of time at the front end, but it saves you a ton of time at the back end. Plus, you've had people look at it that have given you honest advice, so that, because donors often, if they don't understand what you're writing, they don't tell you that. They just say no. And they may not say, the reason I said no is I couldn't read what you said. It didn't make sense to me. Here you know that they're getting something logical that's been vetted through other people. And that's the whole point of this issue.
Okay.
Well, that's all I had today. Do y'all have any other things you want to talk about, or?
Sure, go ahead.
No, I'm just bubbling with excitement because I had my apprehension about how the paper was going to sound, and I'm pleased about the comments given so far, and I'm gonna just try and move ahead. One thing I'd like to ask Dr. Smith, would it be possible for you to just put one or two little pointers for me, because I wasn't able to record the comments you made when you were going through my paper, and just resend it so that I can have a much clearer vision as to what I shift up, what I shift down, what I expand on.
Okay, I will do that. I'll write you just an email.
All right, thanks.
Just a short email. Anybody else? Comments or questions?
Are you going to share what you have just recorded?
So what I do is what I've recorded. I didn't record it when Steve was talking, and so I'll send you a recording. It's being recorded right now. I'll send you a link of you, all of you, a link of what we did today, so you can fast forward it through and get to your part, and if that's helpful.
In the comments on my paper, you suggested that I've got a lot of details. You suggest that the cut, is it the overview of the program, which what the things I have more the that I should probably cut.
I'm not hearing everything. I'm going to go ahead and mute some things here. So say that again, and let me see what else.
On the comments, when you were commenting on my paper, you said you suggested that there's a lot of detail. You said that you advised that I should cut some. Probably I may need to cut some details. Can you suggest exactly what should I cut? Is the overview of the program or anything specific that you should suggest that it's not really necessary?
Okay, let me see. Okay, hold on just a second. So what I was suggesting in that was,
besides what I understood about to work on the needs and on the outcomes, but you also suggested that I should probably have a lot of details. I just want to see if you can indicate
sure.
a part of the document where it's not really necessary.
So here is the point. So this is what we're talking about, is adding this area here, the specific need. And
okay.
So I'm going to put, a lot of stuff there, add there.
Yeah.
The idea is great. The implementation plan is good. You've done that well. You've explained it well. You've got good charts. Here is where we get into a little bit of detail.
Okay.
That is probably a little more detailed than what you would
okay.
need typically in a white paper. I'm okay with you leaving it in because I think I like it. Of course, I like curriculum.
Okay.
Let Rob tell you rid of it, but it's not normally in a white paper at that level of design. But I think it's helpful for me to get. So I would leave it in, even if you go to 6 pages. When we do that, let Rob be angry at you for 6 pages. But I think it does. It makes it interesting. It adds some details. If I was a donor, I want to see that. But I know Rob may say that's the only place. This section here is the only place that it probably is not typically in a.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was.
Okay. So any other questions? I saw John Lewis came in briefly from the Granada, but he left again, and we've lost Vitali. So I'm assuming having internet issues.
I was talking to Kawal Korea yesterday, Kawal,
yes.
And was saying I told him that I'll be meeting with you. I'll be having a class with you today, and he said just say hello to Brad and tell him that we'll be together because he's coming to Mozambique next month to join me in some work.
Kawal's good. So I missed him in Dallas. He and his wife came to Dallas, but I was gone. But he's a lot of fun. He was at a Guatemala overture with us, and he's come to Dallas to write his dissertation. So we got to hang out and spend a lot of time together. He's a good man.
Sure.
And good with work. So let me just pray. So
thank you.
Father, we just thank you for just your love and how you have guided us. Give us wisdom on how to communicate these callings that you've given us. And they're big callings. These are not small callings. And they're big projects. And Father, we just would ask for your wisdom on how to communicate that and open doors for people to hear it and to respond by joy in giving money to these projects. We just lift these up in your name, in the name of Jesus. We pray. Amen.
Amen.
So a lot of fun to talk to you. I will send you the recording. I'll send you the notes, Steve, just some quick notes.
Yes.
But I'm always available if you need. Just give me a time for an appointment. And let's aim for getting these ready for November the 1st. for
Okay.
Rob. If you want me to take a look at it before then, I'll be happy to. And then we'll take that to the next level and start working at it. Steve,
Thank you.
because you're a class member, you do have a final paper that's
Yes.
and I put the details of that in today's email. If you
Okay.
have any desire on coaching on that, I'll be happy to work through that. White paper is a part of it.
Right.
It's due in September 23rd. However, we always give a 30-day grace period. And so
Okay.
one of your other students is also asking for that.
Okay.
So if you, but I'm willing to help and coach and help you get that paper ready.
All right. Thank you.
But the details of that paper are in the bottom of the email I sent today.
I will access my email as soon as we finish here.
Okay. And it's
Okay,
also
thank
all I did is copied from the syllabus.
All right. Good.
Well, good to be with y'all today, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.